Join me as we learn Chumash for Monday, the second Torah reading of Parshas Vayikra. Yesterday we learned about the laws pertaining to the ascent offering that was brought from the animals. Today we're going to learn about the ascent offering and the meal offering that can be brought as an ascent offering as well, which is called the Ola offering. The Ola offering was a donation that a person willingly gave, not obligated to give, and as Rashi explained yesterday, as the Ola offering was given for somebody missing out on doing a positive commandment. Verse 14, chapter 1. If a person who cannot afford to bring a bullock, from the flock, so therefore he's going to bring an offering from the birds, and he will bring an ascent offering which will be from the turtle doves, or from young pigeons, es karbane, that will be a sacrifice. Rashi, min ha'oif, v'loi kol ha'oif, meaning not all birds. As we know that by the animals it says it has to be a complete male and flock, b'ksavim u'be'izim, by sheep and goat, meaning that they have to be tamus v'zachrus by behema, that over here we know that the laws pertaining complete and male applies only by the animal, v'ein tamus v'zachrus by ifis, but complete and a male does not apply when it comes to the birds. Yachal, I would think, so if it doesn't have to be complete, I can bring an injured one, or if it's missing a limb. Talmud leimer min ha'oif, it has to be from the birds, meaning it cannot be missing anything, while it maybe doesn't have to be complete. A little blemish won't make a problem, but if it's missing something, that will not be considered. Like if one of its legs are cut off, that's not going to be kosher. Hatoirim, the turtle doves. Gedolim v'leikatanim, big ones but not small ones. B'nei hayoina, however, when we talk about the pigeons, the turtle doves, the pigeons, the young pigeons, those are ketanim v'legedolim. So when we talk about doves, it has to be from the bigger ones. However, when it comes to the pigeons, they can be even from the smaller ones. So it has to be a mature turtle dove or a young pigeon. And it doesn't say which gender, it can be either male or female, as Rashi explained, that the gender only made a difference by the animals. So why does it say from? As we know, there's always exceptions. So, prat le tchilas hatzov shebazeh v'shebazeh. This comes to exclude one that becomes, changes colors, and by either one of them, by the dove or by the pigeon, true puzzle that it's not fitting for it. Gadol, so too, that same time means that it's in Gadol eitzel b'nei yena v'katan eitzel b'nei teirim. This is considered a large one, a mature one when it comes to the pigeons, and a small one when it comes to the doves. So once they start turning yellow, turtle doves become suitable as sacrifice only at the time when their feathers start turning yellow. Pigeons are suitable as sacrifices at the age when they plucking the feather, which causes it to bleed, and then those make the feathers turn yellow as well. So what we see over here, turtle doves and pigeons are unsuitable for sacrifices during the time when there's a color change in them, because either they're becoming too old, or they're becoming too young, or they're too young. So we see both of them will not work. Over here as well, verse 15. The Kohen must then bring these birds to the altar, and he will partially nip off its head, and bring it as on the altar, and then blood must exude from the neck by the altar, by the side of the altar. So over here it doesn't use the word shchita, which is slaughtering. It uses the word malika, which is to nip off its head. How is this done? As we're soon going to see in Rashi. V'yikrivoi, afilu preda achas. Even, why does he use a singular terminology? Even if it's one bird, yavi, he can bring it, and he doesn't have to bring two. Hakoyin umalak, the Kohen will then cut it. How is he going to cut it? Ein malika bekli. In fact, it does not use, you don't use a tool, there's no knife. Ela ba'atzmai, the Kohen himself does it. He has a sharp fingernail on his thumb, and then he's able to cut it from its neck, and then he cuts the bone of his neck until he reaches the two main, the esophagus and the windpipe, which is in the bird, and he's able then to cut it with his nail, and that's when it's considered slaughtered properly, and a knife is not used. V'nimtza damai, they say in fact the Kohen, there was the Chafetz Chaim that he was a Kohen, and he always kept his nail sharp on his thumb like this when he is ready, as soon as Mashiach comes, he'll be able to be ready to cut, to do malika on the birds that have brought its sacrifices. V'nimtza damai, and he would then squeeze its blood, exude the blood. Melashim mitz apayim, the word nimtza comes from the word like juice, like something that's coming out of it. Mitz apayim, a person that is exuded, you're able to draw something out of it. You are squeezing out of it. A person who gets very angry, so therefore you squeeze out of him, he gets into a fight. Ki ofis hametz, or in Isaiah talks about the enemies, that they squeezed everything out of them. Koives beit hashchita al kira mizbeach. So therefore what he does is he squeezes the place of where he actually slaughtered it, where he did the malik on it, on the wall of the altar, and that's the way he's able to squeeze the blood on the altar. V'yikrivai, v'adam is matzah v'yered, and the blood then continues to drip down on the altar, on the sides of the wall of the altar. U'malak v'hiktir v'nimtza, efshar leimar kain. How is it possible that it's to say that the squeezing that he does after bringing it on, because it says that if you look at the order that the Torah says, he does first malika, which is nipping off the animal. Then it says that he's going to bring it on the altar. And then it says that he squeezes the blood. How can you squeeze the blood after it's already brought on the altar? So Rashi explains as follows. That after he brings it as a sacrifice, he should be able to pour the blood. Ella, he's coming to tell us, just like when you're bringing it as a sacrifice, it's not all in once. You're disconnecting the head from the body. Af malika kain, so too, when he's doing malika, you should do it in that way, that the head and the body should be separate. And according to the simple interpretation, because the verse is written out of order, therefore one can explain simply that he slaughters it, then he brings it. However, before bringing it, squeeze the blood. Verse 16. He must then remove its crop along with its entrails. And then he will throw this along with its feathers, and discard it on the east side, Kedma, on the east side of the Mizbeach, to the side where the place where the ashes are brought. Rashi, Vehesi es mur osai. What is mur osai? So the mur osai means it's crop. So Rashi explains, Mokem hari'i zehazefek. This is the place where all the esophagus is, where all the food is gathered, and when it holds it like a little bag, and it continues to expand in the body. B'nei tzasa, with its feathers, in b'nei me'eya, and some people say it together with the stomach. Noitza, a feather, loshin davramos. This means something which is disgusting. Notzu gamno. And the very fact that Unklis explains bu'uchle with its waist. That's according to the Medrash of Rabbi Yosef Mechanish Nemer, that he says that he takes the intestines of it. Our rabbis explained, and that the word neitzatza over here means feathers. So the word neitzatza is a debate what the actual word means. We translated b'neitzatza as feathers, as the common translation. However, there's those that explain it, and the first opinion is that it means with its intestines. As well as we find, koider, he cuts, saviv hazeka b'sakin. How does he take it off? So he takes a knife and then cuts around the top of the opening by the neck with a knife, ke'ina ruka, like a window, v'noitl, and he takes it out, ima noitza shala oir. So the way to explain it is by the place of where underneath the body of the chicken, not the chicken. A chicken can be brought as a sacrifice, but of the bird, of the pigeon or the dove. He will then cut where there's feathers. You make it like a little window, pull out the intestines together with the skin, these feathers that are on the skin. And Rashi continues, says that this is different from when an animal, but oilus behema, when it comes to an animal sacrifice, nobody eats it, elabavus balea, elabeavus balea, nemer v'hakerev v'kram yichretz. Being that over there nobody eats it, even though it's nobody's, and the owners cannot have any part of it. Therefore, it says that the intestines should be watched. Vayikra, and he has to bring it as a sacrifice. But if, however, shalnozim and agazel, that it's fed from thievery, nemar v'hishlich es ameayim she'achal min agazel. So over here, what he says is over here, an interesting thing, that the difference between the intestines of the animal and the intestines of the bird, the stomach part, is that the intestines of the animal, the stomach of the animal, how does the animal fed? Because the owners give it food. So it's not stolen food. So therefore you wash it and you bring it as a sacrifice. However, when it comes to the animals, to the bird's intestines, where does a bird get food from? Is from taking other people's food. So therefore, its intestines are thrown to the side, to the waste, and not brought on the altar. Eitzel HaMizbeach Kedma on the east side, but Mizracha Shel Keves on the east side of the rampel. Mekem Adeshin, by the place of the ashes. Mekem Shenestim Trumas Adeshin Makol Baker, the place that they put the ashes every morning. Dishim Mizbeach Apnimi, as well as the cleaning off the ashes of the incense that was on the inner altar. Dishinam and V'Meneira, and of the Meneira. Kulam Nivloim Shamim Mekem, they're all put in the one big place of the ashes on the side of the holy temple. Verse 17. Then he must rip open with its feathers. Lo yavdil, however, he must be careful not to completely tear it apart. And then the Kohen brings it all on the altar, on the wood, it's on the fire. Hashem, this is an ascent offering, which is pleasing for Hashem. V'shisa, what does the word shisa means? Ein shisa l'biyad. The word shisa means that you rip it with your hand. V'kivan u'emer b'shimshon, like it says by Shimshon, when he tore the lion apart from its mouth with his hands. B'knafav, im knafav, meaning not with its wings, but by its wings. With its wings still on. You don't have to take off the feathers from its wings. B'knafav, meaning that it doesn't mean that he has to leave the wings on themselves, but he should leave the feathers on it. Rashi explains, there's no human being. Feathers smell very bad, and there is no person that burns feathers that he doesn't get disgusted by it. So why then does the Torah say burn it? Because usually this is a poor person that's bringing it, and it shouldn't look like that a poor person's sacrifice is getting less attention than a great person's sacrifice. And therefore God says, bring it all to show that I love the sacrifice that this person's bringing. Lo yavdil, don't, make sure not to separate it completely. Even though I'm telling you to rip it, but don't rip it completely. You rip it from its top, and therefore it stays connected and not completely torn. And if you notice, the Torah uses the terminology, it's a pleasing offering for a bird. And it also says by an animal that it's a pleasing offering. To tell you, it doesn't make a difference how big your offering is. It doesn't make a difference how big your contribution is, whether it's a lot or a little. If the main thing is that the intention is towards God, that you're doing it for the right purpose. If you do it for the right purpose, it doesn't make a difference how much it is. Chapter 2, verse 1. Now we go into the next kind of offering, which is a grain offering, that if a person can't afford even a bird offering, he has an option to bring a meal offering. When a person desires to bring a meal offering to God, it should be from fine flour, fine wheat flour. And he should pour in it oil, and then he will put on it frankincense upon it. Rashi v'nefesh kisakrif loy nemer nefesh kol b'chol karbanis in the dava. If you notice, it doesn't use the terminology nefesh it says adam, by all the other donation sacrifices, only by the meal offering. Mi darkelis nadev mincha, who usually brings a meal offering? Ani, a poor person. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God says, Ma'ala niyalov. When a poor person comes and brings this meal offering, I consider it ki ilu hikriv nafshe, as if he gave his soul, his whole heart and soul, when he brought the sacrifice. When a rich person gives an animal, okay, it's another animal. But when a poor person takes a meal offering, he has dedicated his whole soul, bringing the sacrifice. Seilas yir karbani. It's a refined flour it should be brought. And it's brought in the following verses when we talk about the different meal offerings. And therefore, he's explaining what kind of meal offering this is. That when a person says, when a person says, I'm going to bring a meal offering, but doesn't explain which one it is, maybe mincha has to be a meal offering from wheat. Because this is the first one that's mentioned in the meal offerings. Nikmetzes, it is taken as a fistful even while it's still flour. Like it's going to be explained soon. Because it's mentioned over here 5 different kinds of meal offerings. And all of them come baked before taking the fistful. That means in all the other meal offerings, the person already baked it, as we'll soon see, and only afterwards do you take the fistful that's put onto the altar. This one is called the meal offering of flour offering because it's still flour when the fistful is taken from it. Seilas, the word seilas, which means fine flour. However, what kind of flour? It must be wheat. Shnemer, as it says, seilas chitin. We find in the book of Exodus where it uses the terminology solas, and that refers to wheat flour. Mincha pchusa isarin, and there's no meal that's less than the amount of an isarin. In isarin, it's about 43 eggs and a quarter and a fifth, which is about the size for challah. V'shnemer, as it says, v'yisarin seilas l'mincha yisarin l'kol mincha. V'yatzik ala shemen, then he pours oil on it, al kula on top of it. V'nasna la levain, and then he puts the frankincense on it, al miktas on part of it. Then miniach koimetz levain ala, he puts a fistful of frankincense on it. L'tzadecha to one side. Because whenever the Torah says again and again something including 2 things, the word riboy, including 2 things, one after the next, it's because it's coming to exclude something. So in this case, you have to put the oil and you have to put the incense. It's coming to tell me that the second incense that I'm putting, even though yes, it has to be a fistful, but I'm putting it to the side. Davracher, another explanation. Shemen, the reason why I'm putting oil, because the flour gets kneaded together with the oil. The nikmatzima, and the fistful is taken from it. As it says, that you take the fistful from the flour and the oil. But the actual spices are only on the side, only part of it. Doesn't get kneaded with it and doesn't get the kamitza, the fistful is not taken from it. As it says, after he already took his fistful of the flour, he collects a little bit of spices on the side, maktira, and then brings it as a sacrifice. You have the 3 stages. You have to pour the oil, you have to put the spices, and then you bring it. It teaches us that who's the one that can put the oil and the actual mixing. Even a non-Kohen is allowed to do it. Verse 2. And then he brings his meal offering to the children of Aaron the Kohanim, and they will take from there, they'll scoop out a fistful from there, from the flour and from the oil, with all its spices, and then the Kohen will take its remembrance, will then burn it up as a memorial, on the altar, as a burnt offering is pleasing to God. Verse 2, HaKoyanim, V'kamatz, and they will take a fistful, mikmitzvah ve'elach, from the time of scooping it up. That already is the Kohen's job, mitzvahs kahuna. V'kamatz misham, what does it mean from there? Memogim sheragli azar imdis, that it's telling us that the mincha, what does it mean misham? That means from a distance, that even it's from, if the fellow that's bringing it, the Israelite that's bringing the offering, is standing in a further out. Lamedcha, it's coming to teach me that you can take that fistful, scoop out the flour from any place. It doesn't have to be in a specific place in the courtyard of the Holy Temple. It was allowed to be taken anywhere. Even in the 11 Amos where the Israelites were allowed to stand, even there is where the flour can be scooped from. A fistful. How much is a fistful? Yachol, I may think that this fistful mevoidat has to be full and mevat space and coming out and sticking out from all sides. The yotzel chol sad and sticking out of his fingers. That's why it says in a different place later on in chapter 6 that he will lift with his fist. It's the only thing that's valid is what's in the fist. Not more. If I would only have the word bekumtze yachol chatzar, I would think, okay, so maybe it doesn't have to be completely full. So therefore, Talmud Leimer Malay, it has to be full. Okay, so then how does a person do it? So how do you get that it should be full and it shouldn't be too full? It's empty, but it shouldn't be too empty. So it tells us what happens is he takes, as Rashi says, he takes the three fingers which are on the palm of his hand, that means not the thumb and not the pinky, the three middle fingers. He will scoop out a fistful, and then he takes his thumb and shakes off the residue on this side, and his pinky and shakes off the residue on this side. This way he has a fistful in his hand. And that's why it means kaimitz kamash maloshen ivris, and that's why actually this finger, which we would call the ring finger, is called the kamitza finger, because that's where you have your fistful. Al kol leveinasa, levad kol aleveina, besides all the spices. It should be completely full fist. The spices and bring it as an altar. So too the spices should be brought as a sacrifice. What happens if he took a fistful and he had gargir melach, some salt, a kairat levaina, or a big spice, or some measurement of spices? Psula wouldn't be good. That means the actual fistful has to be of the flour and the oil, and then he can skew and he swooshes it around a little bit of the spices on the outside, and that's what he brings as an offering. Askarasa, as a memorial, hakoymet legvaya. Only the fistful is what goes to God. This is remembrance of this meal offering that the person is bringing it. What's a memorial for? Because this is a memorial that remembers the individual who brings it as a sacrifice for good and for pleasure by God. Verse 3. So what happens with the leftovers? Because we mentioned it's a big amount that he's bringing. If that goes to Aaron and his sons, Kodesh Kodashim, it's considered holy of holies, Me'ishi Hashem, of sacrifices of God. Aaron Levanov, Kohen Gadol Neitel Chelik Bereish, that the Kohen Gadol gets first dibs in it. Shloi b'machleikas, and no fighting over it. V'hedyet b'machleikas. However, when it comes to the regular Kohen, he has to split it up with everybody else. That means the Kohen Gadol he doesn't have to share it with anybody. The Kohen Hedyet, he has to share it. Kodesh Kodashim hilahem, for them, that they cannot eat at that time. It's considered holy. Elam chelik bal elach matnas ishim, that the only time they're allowed to eat it after God gets his portion, only then are they allowed to have it as well. Verse 4. Now, if you bring a grain offering, but not the grain offering, but this grain offering is ma'ifetainer, was baked in an oven, then it must be made it must be made of unleavened loaves. It cannot be chametz. Belulis bashem, and mixed with oil. Urikike matis, or if you have flat unleavened cakes, meshuchim b'shemen, that is smeared with oil. So over here we have two different kinds. One that was baked in an oven, that it has oil in it, and the other one is that it's smeared on the top with a lug of oil. Let's see Rashi, verse 4. V'chi sakriv. Now here's another two kinds of meal offerings. If a person says, I'm going to bring an offering that I baked in an oven. So that means he can bring loaves or he can bring flatbreads, crackers. Hachalis belulis, the difference is that the chalas are actually kneaded together with oil. For the kikin and the flat ones, the matzahs are meshuchan, are only smeared with oil. However, the rabbis discuss what does it mean it was smeared with oil. Some say that he smears them, and after they're already soaked and saturated in oil. He keeps on smearing them in oil until he finishes all the oil of the lug. Because every meal offering to this lug you have to bring at least a lug of oil. Some say he just smears it, coming cuff like to make a sea. And the leftover oil, the kohen meat. Ma Talmud Leimer Ba Shemen. Why does it say twice the oil? Shnei Pamim. Hachsher Shemen Shnei Shlisha Yetzim and Azeisim. To tell me that the oil that I use here, I can even use. It doesn't have to have the first drop. If you recall in Parshas Tetzaveh, we spoke about the first drop of oil and all the other kinds of oil. That I can use all kinds of oil that comes from the olives. It's kosher. Vein Tzadich Shemanishin El Lamaneda, and that's only needed for the menorah Shnemer by Zoch. It says it's pure. Shaninu b'menachas, and then we learned also in the tractate of menachas. Kol menachas afuyis l'fnei k'mitzasim nikmatas l'idei psicha, that all the meal offerings that are mentioned here are talking about that are done were baked before the fistful was taken, as we mentioned previously. However, these that are already baked, the fistful is taken after they baked. Kulim bais eser eser chalis. When they are brought, there comes 10 chalas. V'omer bar rikikim ba'asar rikikim. When it talks about the flatbreads and the matzah, you're bringing at least 10 of them as well. Verse 5. If, however, the grain offering is made in a shallow frying pan, Seilas belula, and it was then mixed with oil, matzah tiyah should be considered, must be unleavened. Rashi, if a person says that I want to bring a meal offering that's in a frying pan, there was a vessel that was in the holy temple, that they would fry these things on the fire, in oil, it wasn't a deep vessel, it was a frying pan as we would know today. That they would take them, the ingredients of the meal offering were in it, and what happened was kashne became hard because since there's no walls, it's being fried, and something that becomes fried becomes crisp, and that's what we're talking about here. All of these, whether it's the loaves that are saturated in oil, the ones that are made into crackers, or the fried ones, the fried crisps, they all need oil with them. And how the oil is done, yitzika, that they were poured the oil or needed oil, all of them had to have the oil put into an empty vessel. That means before they mixed it together with the flour. That he has to mix it with the oil while it's still flour. It has to be mixed with oil. Verse 6. After baking it into loaves, what you're going to do is you break it into pieces. Then you'll pour oil on it, the rest of the oil that you have. Shemen minchahi, this becomes a grain offering as an offering. Rashi, like we mentioned previously, that all the meal offerings need oil with it. So I would think even the one that are baked in the oven as well. Talmud leimar aleha, on it, that I exclude the loaves that already have the oil in it, but I don't exclude these crackers that were made previously. Talmud leimar he, that those two kinds that are baked in the oven, whether it may be the loaves or the crackers that do not need to pour the oil afterwards, only the one that is fried that needs the oil. This concludes the second Torah reading for Monday, Parshas Vayikra.